The Super Media Bros podcast is a founding member of the OddPods Media Network.
Hey, I'm Pantsless Aaron.
This is Stevie.
And I'm Augie.
And we are Because Fuck You, That's Why, the podcast that's all about playing games and having fun. Our games are mostly based on British panel shows or British game shows, but we'll play just about anything that catches our attention and imagination. Our show is all about laughs, so please come by and have a great time. Why?
Because fuck you, that's why.
So before this episode starts, I'd like to tell you guys that if you want more content that was left on the cutting room floor for this episode, you can visit the Muck Podcast YouTube channel, which contains all the content, uncut, longer conversation, more humor, more fun. Scroll up to the show notes below and check it out after the episode. Super Media Bros. So, you're about to find out that I am the world's shittiest host. So here we go.
No! Come on.
Welcome to episode 221 of the Super Media Bros podcast. I'm Richie, and today Devin is out doing his delivery route shit because, fucking jobs and all that stuff. The man just works constantly. I don't know how he has time to sit here across from me and listen to my incessant rambling on multiple occasions, but he does, and he deserves a day off. He deserves a week off. The man deserves a whole ass vacation. But today, I will tell you this right now. I have two awesome ladies from our podcast network, OddPods Media. Muck Podcast, Tina and Hillary. How's it going? You guys are coming in to do freaking Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter with me because, holy shit, what the fuck of a movie?
Oh my God. I'm so excited to talk about this movie, Richie. I'm so excited.
This movie.
So good.
Oh my God.
I love it.
Yeah. So for those of you out there that have not heard of this movie, this was out like a decade ago. And I remember the novel by Seth Grahame-Smith, who did Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is also a really good book. But what attracted me to this movie was the fact that, first of all, whenever they were showing trailers for it, Timur Bekmambetov, who did Wanted and Day Watch and Night Watch, I found out he was directing this, and I was like, holy shit, I want to see it because, it's got that dated 2010s bullshit CGI in it or whatever, but that's kind of his style. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of his style, but then Tim Burton attaches his name to it. I'm like, okay, so I'm a little more interested than I was already.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. I mean, it's a 2010 CG fest, but the concept is ridiculous. But I thought this is a good way to bring you guys in to do this with me because it's like a really fucking weird mashup of cult cinema and politician shit. And y'all are fucking hilarious. And like, I'm here to exploit the fuck out of that on this show because y'all are fucking hilarious. I fucking love y'all's podcast because I do. It's a good mix of like you get your information, but I have coined the term red ass Hillary because whenever Hillary goes the fuck off on people, I'm just like, I'm here for it. I'm just sitting there like this. It's good times. So
I'm so glad that all of that anger is finally paying off.
Yes.
In some ways whatsoever. Thank you.
It's the best.
So before we get into it, why don't y'all tell our listeners a little bit about your show and what y'all do?
Okay, well, we are hosts of the Muck Podcast, which is a political true crime podcast. There's a lot of true crime podcasts out there, but we tackle all of the weird and strange and crazy things that happen in U.S. politics from like the 1800s forward. So you never know what kind of story you're going to get. And Tina and I bring a different story to the podcast every week, and we don't know what the other person's covering. And since we are like huge political geeks anyway, as soon as we hear like a certain name, like, I don't know, an Anthony Weiner or something like that, we like freak out because we love these stories so much. And we do in our personal lives, we volunteer for political organizations here in Broward County, Florida, where we live. And so we have a lot of insider knowledge when it comes to things happening in Florida. And it's a huge passion for us, but we also love all the muckiness of politics, and it's fun. And yes, Tina loves to find stories that make me insane. And so it builds, like there's a slow build, and all of a sudden it's like I just explode. And so, yeah, that's what we do. And there's a lot of cursing and yelling and fighting for people's rights and who we believe in. And it's a fun podcast, but it's also a constant reminder that things in this country have never really changed. And we are constantly repeating some of the most awful atrocities that this government has put upon people, especially women and people of color in this country. So it's a lot of like, oh shit, voting, we're trying to block the polls. We did a poll tax back in the 1800s. So yeah, this isn't new. They're just doing it. It's just a repeated, a couple words change, but it's all the same shit that they've always done. And it's really important to recognize that, acknowledge it, and try to get it across to people that they could do something about it, really, I guess.
Right. And the other thing I think that is so great about our podcast is when people, I think, hear politics or history, they think that it's just going to be boring, like reading a textbook or something. And that's not what we're about. We are not, just regurgitating some boring story. Like we try to make it fun and exciting. And I think that's an important piece to note, that I think a lot of times people hear politics, they're like, oh, I don't want to hear it. And it's like, no, this isn't like your typical news NPR podcast, We're like probably the opposite of that. Like they would probably be mortified at the way that we talk about politics on the show. And that's what I love about it. And I think that's what a lot of people like about it who are our listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, I'm not the most knowledgeable person when it comes to stuff like that, but I like it because I think I've told you this, Hillary. It's so digestible. And that's what I enjoy the most is, it's odd to say it, but I mean, it's a fun listen. Even some of the more serious matters, like I said, it's very digestible and it's easy to listen to, because I know people that are podcast listeners that are like, I have a hard time getting through certain true crime shows because it's too dark or, anything like that. But this is a balance, and I think you have to have that balance. And weirdly enough, to transition into this movie that we're talking about, it is a very fucking weird balance of off the wall and dark and serious. Like, this movie was way more serious than it fucking needed to be, but it was still fun. Like, look, okay, so we did a President's Day Cult Cinema Showdown last year, and it was literally a ripoff of this movie called Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies versus FDR American Badass, which was fucking hilarious. Like, so if y'all just want like a drunk weekend of bullshit, please, I implore you, watch FDR American Badass. It is the stupidest shit. It's like South Park.
FDR.
Yeah, he's got like turret guns and shit attached to his wheelchair, and he's just like blowing motherfuckers away. It's so stupid. It's the best shit ever.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
It's on YouTube. It's absolutely free. Go fucking watch it. But yeah, so y'all had never seen this movie, correct?
No.
Okay, so I can only imagine it was okay. So what was your experience like just seeing it, like just first impression? I know Tina was like, I have notes.
Yeah,
I do. I have notes, but my first impression, I was like, what? I have to agree with you. Like, even like it started off with like just this, horrible, sad beginning with, Abe as a child, even with the biblical, there's biblical connection at the very beginning with the name Abraham. I was like, oh God, what is happening? Like, this is how we're starting. We're setting up, it just felt like very, like the cliche, like hero's tale where you have to have like this biblical birth. There's got to be this big connection. And I was like, all right, let's go. And then like the mother, I was like, dear God, why? Why? And he's like he's peeking over the edge to see like the vampire. So some of it I thought in the beginning was a little heavy-handed. Like it's setting up like the witness to the slave brutality with the young kid. I'm like, oh, okay, so from the beginning, he's, going to be fighting for slavery when we know that at least historically, despite his anti-slavery work, Abraham Lincoln was known to say things that were not positive about Black people. So to have like this, beginning that he's like righteous from birth, I was like, all right. Okay.
Here's what I think. I thought it was really funny too that like when you said the FDR thing, it's so funny. I'm thinking, can we not come up with a new hero? Like, are we really having to use historical figures to become heroes? I mean, I went into the movie thinking this is just going to be for fun. This is not going to be crazy. It's just fun. Except it's weird because they kept saying honest to him, like honest Abe. They kept repeating honest.
Yes.
Like, we get it. Like, we know who it is. Like, keep doing it. It's like George Washington with the cherry tree. Like, all right. We know the reference,
Dude, so the funniest fucking part about that, like what you were getting at with the honesty thing, how he was like getting taught by Dominic Cooper's character at the scene where they're chopping the fucking tree. And he's like,
oh my God.
Yeah, he's like,
so good.
Yeah, he's like, what do you hate? He's just like, well, I hate it. I couldn't protect her. And he's like hitting. And he's just kind of sitting there. Dominic is really probably sitting there thinking, you fucking pussy. Hit it harder. But it's not until Abraham Lincoln channels his inner monster energy Kyle versus Drywall that he really like chops the whole fucking tree in one swoop.
Yeah.
And my God.
Just like, dude.
But the explosion of the tree, it was like the stars came out. I was like, honey, what's happening right now? The creepiest thing is that this actor really looked like fucking Abraham Lincoln. Even as like young Abraham Lincoln, he fucking looked like him. That creeped me the fuck out. Me out.
Yeah, Benjamin Walker actually, like, for all what this movie was, did a pretty good job portraying Abe Lincoln as a figure.
Oh no, I mean yes. I just
legitimate actors in this movie, like real. Dominic Cooper is like a legitimate. So is that the one who played Mary Todd, was it Elizabeth Winstead?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and Anthony Mackie. So I mean,
yeah, dude, I was shocked every time somebody showed up. I'm like, look at this motherfucker in this movie.
And
all right,
yeah, and then Rufus. I always fuck his last name up. Rufus Sewell or whatever his name is, how you pronounce his last name. He's been in a ton of shit too. And the weird thing is, the movie I remember him from was Dark City. And I love that fucking movie. It was the movie that Alex Proyas did after he did The Crow. And it was just a complete 180. Yeah, it was a complete 180. It was like this dystopian sci-fi like kind of film. And it predates The Matrix as far as like the kind of weird shit. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, that actor, I didn't recognize him at the time that I saw this movie. And then coming back here, I was like, oh, that's that motherfucker.
Is he the one who played the head vampire who is like the main guy?
Adam, yeah.
That guy, okay, he was also in the movie The Holiday with little Kate Winslet, Cameron Diaz picture. Right now.
Oh my God,
he was in that movie too, and then that's where I recognize him from.
Right, and Alan Tudyk playing Stephen Douglas. That was
Oh my God,
I love that.
Stephen Douglas part.
Right,
all of that. The other thing I think I loved about this movie is the cheesy lines.
Yes.
Even from the beginning when we meet Jack Bart and, he knows that Jack Bart has like, he has the fight with the dad and he's like, there are other ways to collect a debt, and he's like, okay. and then the mother died. Like, it's
one of the lines I wrote down, this is right when he chops down the tree. That guy, Dominic's character says to him, real power comes from truth. And I was like, again, with the honest, he fucking explodes. And I was like, boom, bro, this is going to be awesome. This movie's going to be awesome. Oh my God. Every good movie's got like a training sequence, right? And so that training sequence, I remember when they started doing like he's training with the axe, like learning how to be a vampire slayer. And I looked at the clock on the movie and I was like, we're fucking 18 minutes in and we're already at the training scene. Like, this is going to be a long fucking movie. Like,
it's going to be, The Mentor. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it follows the hero of 1,000 faces, right? Like, it follows that whole thing of, you have the mentor, you have the training, you have the person of, and that's the other thing in this movie. Like, Abe Lincoln didn't have a mythical birth. He's not godlike in any way. Yet the vampires, I get it. Like, you're supernatural.
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln is not supernatural, yet somehow he is managing some very supernatural feats throughout this entire movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's the top hat.
Yeah.
It's the top hat. That's where he gets his powers from. Because
God.
I mean, if Mary Todd can stand on a whole ass top hat, and not cave it in. I mean, come on now.
I mean,
that was ridiculous.
Yeah, and
that was ridiculous.
So cheesy.
And he fucking hurls it like a shuriken. Like at one point at the plantation scene, he throws that fucker like a ninja star. I'm like, look at this son of a bitch go.
Lord.
But I'll have you know, Benjamin Walker trained with I think he trained with legitimate axes, and that's actually him doing all that flipping work with that shit. It's stupid impressive.
I thought that was hilarious. Like when the axe turned into the axe gun.
Oh, the gun. So good. Here's the other part.
The technology.
When he's
the late 1800s.
I guess maybe I should wait. Maybe I should wait till we get to it. But like the other part was like how the slaves have been the food for vampires for all these hundreds of years. I'm like, the slaves haven't had enough fucking problems.
Well, I was upset. I have to say, I was a little upset. The one sort of main thing I was annoyed with was that the erasing of the fact that the Civil War wasn't really about abolishing slavery. It was just about like getting rid of the undead. So it's like, okay, we erase history enough. Now we're just going to erase slavery altogether. And it wasn't even about that. Like, I was like, really movie? This is what we're doing?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And
thank you.
Yeah. And the fucked up part is in the book, it was more, it wasn't even like with that in the book. This is the problem that I have with certain book to film translations. In the book, it was just basically used as a means to be like, okay, the vampires were the reason, like in the book, like the vampires were the reason the South was so hard to fucking defeat. And it just it added more of a dramatic element to the ongoing war to get to that end point. Whereas, like y'all said, this one just kind of, no, we're just gonna push this aside, and then we're gonna go with this. Like, I did have some issue with that as well. At the time that it had come out, it's sad to say, but it's like when you're looking at entertainment purposes on a film, that's like the least thing from your mind. But when you get older and you start looking at this shit, you're just like, okay, so what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I guess for entertainment purposes, a lot of things are excused away. I mean, it's for entertainment, really. Like, I was really looking for, like, there was very specific historical references, but then I was like, all right, but it's, the vampire.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and tell you vampires aren't real, because that'll be the night that some motherfucker's at my door being like, can I come in? Do I have permission to enter? And I'm like,
oh my God. Well, I think this movie was funny with some of the things that they like, the standard vampire traits, right? You know, the silver, the mirrors. It was like, okay, we're going to hold on to these particular things. But then the other thing that is funny, though, I felt like maybe a slight discrepancy, because there's one point where, what is it? Henry Sturgis, right? What's the trainer?
That's him.
Yeah. Where he, when we learn, it's all revealed that he is actually a vampire and he's lost the love of his life, and he's like the Dexter of like vampires. He only kills the morally corrupt or whatever.
That's so funny.
And then he, but we learn because he can't kill vampires. But there's a scene where they get in a fist fight towards the end. And it's like, wait a minute, before when he went to attack, he couldn't attack at all. But then there's like a place where they do connect towards the end of the movie. So I'm like, well, which is it?
Yeah.
So that was like a little sort of film.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, like where he bites him. You're talking about the scene on the train where he bites him on the arm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if that's also the case, I was looking back again, and the beginning where he walks in on him with that lady in the tub, and he's walking around the whole ass house. I'm like, bro, I can see your reflection in every curio cabinet in that motherfucking room.
Yeah.
You ain't fooling shit. So, lots of film goofs.
Like continuity,
lots of film goofs happen. One scene in particular that showcases that, like I was mentioning earlier, that typical ass late or early 2010s CG, the whole horse stampede sequence where
oh my God,
where Bart just fucking he just yeets a whole horse at him. Just throws the shit.
Like, how is he's running on top of horses in a stampede? Like, what? And that's what I'm saying. Like, he's not superhuman. Like, I get that the vampires and each vampire, like this one is fast and this one can fly and whatever. You have your own little vampire trait. But Abe Lincoln is human. How is he doing this?
Right.
How is he doing this?
I know.
He swung a fucking horse and Abe caught horses fucking flying at us. Okay.
I think he rode the horse. He caught too.
This movie, I feel like it tried to blend, like the mythical, the biblical, the Matrix, it was sort of too many different, because even like the main vampire, like the head guy, Adam, right? Like the father of all vampires. Like, okay,
But I think also there comes a point, like it's a fiasco. The movie's a fiasco. So there comes a point where like you're taking it seriously and then everything starts to just unravel and now everything's funny. So by the time we got to the horse scene, I was like, oh my God.
But even his attempt, okay, so some historical things I liked is, like he's, the dead take over the South, right? We learned that part. And then what is the line? It was like, we're a nation of men, not monsters. And then he goes to Springfield and that's where he sets up his trade and he's not supposed to fall in love and whatever, but he meets Mary Todd. And then that Douglas Lincoln sort of debate, okay, there's tension, but historically they were not engaged, Douglas and Mary Todd, but he did ask her out and she did like decline his advances. So there is a little bit of truth, at least to like that, I guess, depiction, but I mean, they put it over the top with them being engaged and like the whole like romantic, love triangle they try to establish there. But when he tries to kill that first vampire, I was like, oh my God, and he goes into the pharmacy and then he's in his trap and he's upside down. I'm like, what is going on? And it's his great escape. I love it.
That was funny. That was funny to me because during the training montage, he's teaching him to fight in the dark. If you're fighting,
it's like Luke Skywalker. It's Luke Skywalker with the helmet on.
It really is. But like, if you're teaching him to fight in the dark, why do you need a packet of rice or whatever to throw on the guy? It's like, you ought to know that shit. Because he's sitting in there and he's just like, before you protect others from darkness, you must first be able to protect yourself. And I'm thinking, was that really your idea or was it the Trojan Condom Company's idea? Because I'm telling you right now, that's the same fucking concept, buddy. So,
oh my God. There was like halfway through the movie, I was wondering like, how did the actors even get through this? Like there's got to be a point when you're on set where you're like, oh no, this is going to be a really shitty movie. Like there's got to be a point where you're like, how do I finish this filming?
Whatever, they're getting paid.
I guess.
And I'm sure it's fun.
Yeah.
The worst part, I would think, is if you know a movie's going to be shit when you're making it, but you still have to do the press tour afterwards and sell it.
Yes. Yeah. Also, the great thing about the vampires is they didn't just like have the fangs that come out. Their whole
that part. The first time I saw
their mouths were like fucking intense, dude. It was scary.
That first scene, I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, maybe this is going to be like super scary. And then it kind of went back and forth. Yeah. I like that. I thought that was, good graphics. And the other thing I kind of like, cause I'm a nerd, is the puns that were happening. Like when, cause he would like send him these notes to like go after, and when he goes after like the guy at the bank and he's like, he goes, like the bank deposit can quickly disappear. And that's the vampire that disappears. I'm like, okay, look at you guys being cute about how you're like sending the message to Abe Lincoln.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so funny.
So ridiculous.
I know.
And what else? So the will they, won't they, they had to add that in with like the whole Mary Todd thing. Are they going to be together? Are they not going to be together? Is he going to resist and follow the rules? And, that was kind of cute.
I thought the time jump whenever he decides, okay, well, I'm gonna put my axe away and I'm not gonna do this anymore. And the time jump was like, God, it was worse than like a Bill and Ted time jump with that Abe Lincoln because he immediately just is old and weird.
Yeah, and he's walking, right? That's where he's walking in like the beard.
Yeah, and that fucking Dutch angle of the camera just like slowly turns up at him and you're just like, what the fuck is this?
And
that should be an
that's
action.
The Abe Lincoln we know.
Right.
If you blink, you miss it. Like if you blink, you miss this whole fucking thing. I'm like, what just happened to that cute boy I was looking at? And I was like, man, he's like, oh, he's Abe Lincoln. Oh God.
Yeah, he all of a sudden has like the Bush scored 7 years ago. He's almost like Sean Connery kind of in a way. And I'm just like, bro,
yes.
the fuck, dude?
Oh my God.
One thing that I did kind of dig about how the way I'm looking at it is like certain things they tried to take that historically happened and give them like vampiric reasoning. One of them being his son dying, how he was bitten by a vampire, and they could, and nobody else but him knew. Like, okay, the doctor's like, okay, it's got to be some type of illness and all this other shit. And Abe's just like, oh, these motherfuckers done bit my kid. I'm about to whoop y'all ass.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, why were you not like preparing for this shit this whole fucking time? Like the fact that like the fact that this war was going on, and everybody was like, oh, the Confederates are impervious to bullets and all this other shit. And it was not until he's sitting there eating fucking dinner, which again, Mary and Abe's drift from her getting pissed about his vampire diary. Like
oh my god!
I love how symbolic. Yeah, I love how symbolic the long fucking table was between the two of them. Like, it's like, oh, they're getting further and further apart. But it's not until he picks that fucking fork up where he's just like, nothing's working, and all I have is just silver fork, and I'm like, you fucking idiot.
Oh my god, that was
so later on the fork. Later on, you see the fork like floating in the air, and it said AL on it, like for Abe Lincoln. I was like, yes, bring that, throw it back. We're gonna bring it back around.
It was so funny.
Oh my god,
but
so good, so good.
I laughed my ass off at that scene, dude, because imagine just you're in your house. You're having a nice dinner with your fucking badass silverware and fine china that you just bought. And here come the Union soldiers just taking all your fucking silver shit. And you're just like, what the fuck? I had to kind of laugh because it just immediately, he's like, we need all the silver we can get. And then just fucking everybody just taking all their shit and just throwing it.
Donating silver. They're donating silver for the war cause.
Yes, the woman vampire who was like,
oh god,
who bit the son. I'm like, why is this bitch just wandering around the White House? We got no security back then. Just come on in the fucking. And the wife knew she was fucking trouble because she gave her the side eye. And I was like, oh shit, maybe Abe's fucking around. But then I realized it was the vampire. I was like, oh no. And how is she wandering into the room where the son is? Like, where is the protection for this family? Fucking. And my favorite, I gotta tell you, my favorite is that little sword that he dropped, that little silver sword. And then at the end, the gun, and she shoots that woman vampire, and it's sticking out of her head. I was like, yeah, that's a good shot, Mary Todd.
Well, but why, first of all, why is Mary Todd running around these tents? She would not have been there running around the tents, helping everybody, and then happens to see the vampire. Like, come on. I can suspend my disbelief for a lot of things, but I'm like, really, Mary Todd? You're not in the tents. Well, not happening.
I mean, I don't. There's a special appearance in this movie that I absolutely love, and I cannot wait till we get to it. Are we just going to jump into that, or do we have something else first?
No, you can. I know it's going to be kind of all over the place. Like we kind of threw out the whole like front to back format forever ago because it's a lot more fun when you're just recalling like stupid shit from these movies because like we really want people to go watch this shit for themselves because everybody's gonna have such a different mindset about it.
Yeah.
But like the thing you said about suspending your disbelief, and I want to hear what Hillary you got to say about your thing. When she got shot in the fucking head with that sword or whatever. Look, and y'all know I'm a big fucking wrestling nerd. That fucking woman took that bullet like she got clotheslined out of her fucking boots by the Undertaker or some shit, man. Like fucking hard. Her feet just said whoop. And she fell the fuck back. I was like, God damn.
I know. And she's a vampirist, right? Like, doesn't she what's her magical ability? Like, she's just walking? Yeah. I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, they're supposed to have super senses. I mean, she had to load a gun and shoot it at her.
Aren't they supposed to be fast?
I don't know. Tina's trying to make sense of it all. Like, it's like, forget about it. It's over. Like, that's the end of the movie. Like, we're fucking over at this point. My favorite. There's two things I really fucking loved. Number one, I did not see fucking coming, is Harriet motherfucking Tubman. I was like,
oh
what?
My God.
What? Who's over here now? Who's over here? And someone said Harriet. I was like, oh my God, Harriet Tubman's in this fucking movie. Let's go. Like, let's fucking go. That was incredible. Come on.
Oh my God. I just
in the book, really... Richie? Is her character in the book?
I believe so, if I remember correctly, because I think they took refuge with her at one point, if I'm remembering right. It's been a while since I've read the book.
Insane. Yeah, that was insane. And then my favorite thing at the end of the movie was that guy, Dominic Cooper, who played Henry, I think his name is Henry. He's like, come on, let's go fight together, arm in arm. And he's like, no, I'm going to be late for the theater. And I'm like, oh no, Abe, don't fucking go. I was like, don't do it. Don't do it.
That was just ridiculous.
His carriage.
He just leaves him in the White House while he goes out to the theater. Like, what's going on? Because they did have they had that fight. They came back together. I don't know.
Yeah.
But can we talk about the big scene at the plantation?
Yes.
They're like, these are like these hardcore vampires, and they're like, let's invite Abe to the plantation, and they find a way to get him there. They kidnap his bestie, Will, and that's how they get him to the plantation. But they just kind of walk up and just look in the window. Like, it's so ridiculous. And he tells his friend, the shopkeep, oh gosh, his name is escaping me. Like, basically like, we're hunting vampires. Like, I feel like a normal person
be like, bye.
Like, I don't understand what we're doing. Like, and then he looks and sees these vampires like dancing and then killing people. And and then they come storming in. It's like, you're two dudes and there's a fleet of vampires. Again, this supernatural thing of like, Abe has these like superhuman abilities that there's no way he would have defeated all of these vampires. I mean, these are like the creme de la creme of the vampires. It's not just like some newly formed vampire that doesn't know what they're doing. This is like Adam's crew. And he's like, you've destroyed my people, but I want to make it. And the scene with the chair where she comes in and then the chair is around his neck, like laying on the ground. And then the shopkeep comes in. I mean,
the shopkeep comes in the carriage. Remember, he busts through the fucking window and he's like, the whole horses in the carriage comes flying through the fucking living room of his house. And I was like,
my God.
They didn't call him Speed for nothing, man.
Speed. That's his name, Speed. Oh,
yeah.
Lord.
And I thought the scene in like that scene where the two vampires come out of blending in that painting, that mural.
Yes.
That was fucking so cool. Like there were some really cool things in this movie, like shit like that. They shot this here in Louisiana, by the way. They shot that they shot this in New Orleans. So whenever they're in New Orleans, they're in some outskirt areas. So like they're actually like swamping, it was cool.
And New Orleans, I mean, vampire lore, it's always in New Orleans, right? Yep. Like that's just, so I like that they're like going to going to NOLA to go to the plantation that it happens to be there. I'm like, of course it's New Orleans. Like they've read their Anne Rice. They've, they know what's going on with the vampires. So,
but the fight scenes, the one at the plantation, the one on the train,
at the end,
those scenes were incredible. The fight scenes were fucking, they were like Matrix.
How were they standing on a train?
Slow motion shit. I fucking loved it. I was there for the fight scenes. Every time there was a fight scene, I'm like, more of this. I don't need this nonsense bullshit. I want more of these fight scenes.
But the fight scenes, again, like I just get annoyed because if I would know that Abe Lincoln had some superhuman strength, I could buy that he's standing on a fast moving train fighting vampires. But he's a dude. Like, how is he doing that? And Speed can do it, and Will. Then what the heck? Then why are vampires special if humans can do it too? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's got all that hate inside him. Remember how he busted that tree down? He had to feel it, so he could stand on that train and fight.
He just pictures all the vampires being trees, like completely being trees. It's like, you're a tree, you're a tree, you're a tree. I will make some parchment out of you. Just fucking them up, dude. So but the train sequence I thought was fucking fantastic. As over the top as it is fucking fantastic, especially when old girl at the bottom lights that whole bridge on fire. I was like,
oh my God. The whole thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. It makes me laugh because there's like, she strikes the match. Oh, she's about to light, but in like 3 seconds, the whole motherfucker's lit. I was like,
the whole thing. And they're, booking it. They make it.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing I thought was funny. Or not funny, but I was like, of course. They go hide in the church, right? Like the plantation thing happens. They roll up and the priest is like, we haven't seen anyone. I saw some fellas down the road. And the vampires are like, of course. But they're vampires, so they can't go in a church anyway or whatever. But when they're in the church, which is a little, of course, it's cliche, but there is a woman there, a Black woman who says that they are that the war was, they're fighting for the soul of the country. And then he goes back and he co-ops what she says to get people to be on his side. So I'm like, of course it's a white man taking a black woman's words and using it as his own to be successful. Thank you, Abe Lincoln. Thanks. Way to go.
Listen, honey, man, that toxic white masculine.
I was like,
start yesterday.
Oh my God.
It's so good. It was so fucking funny.
Good times.
So
the other part that was so good about the train scene is that like this train is going to collapse. The bridge is fucking falling. They're kicking those the posts out on that bridge. And all of it's coming up, and they open the boxes, and it's rocks. And I was like, "What the fuck?" Like they totally scam them, which I love, of course, here for. But also, like all these people are gonna fuck. This whole thing is gonna fall apart because you got to do a bait and switch. And then I was like, "You get a bait and switch on me, though." Like I'm pissed. I'm mad at that guy's speed. I thought he had fucking thrown them under the bus. I'm like so confused about like what's going on. Oh my God, it was too much.
So another. I mean, I know I'm bringing in all this historical stuff, but there's a scene where like he has the blacks like fighting, you know, and gets, people on board to help and black people on board. And historically, Lincoln didn't really want blacks fighting in the war because he didn't think they'd do a good job. So again, like, I just feel like I think that we need to say like Abe Lincoln did do good things, right? The Emancipation Proclamation, but I feel like we still have to acknowledge some of the faults of our leaders and not just like throw them up on these pedestals. So I thought I'm like, Abe Lincoln didn't want people fighting in the war, but here he is like stealing a speech from a black woman and then building an army. So
yes, another thing that was fucked up is that when they finally go to this montage, now he's old. He's talking, like he's narrating something. He goes, and now I'm 50. And I was like, 50? Jesus Christ! You look like you're 90 years old. I'm like close to this. We're maybe about 5 or 6 years off of this, but damn, motherfucker.
Well, 50 back then is like 75 today.
Okay.
That's right.
Oh my God. I'm 50 years old. I was like, no.
Oh my God. Oh, and the best was when is it Jefferson Davis who comes out of the house and is like, thank you, vampires, for coming on board and fighting with us. I was like, it's so great.
Yeah.
Like, link him up with like the most horrible vampire in the land. So I like that. I like that historical mashup of really making Jefferson Davis be even worse than what he was in real life.
Right.
Oh my God.
No, and don't apologize about bringing up like the actual historical stuff, because that's another reason I thought this would be a fun thing to do, is because me and Devin could sit here all fucking day and talk, just surface level on some of these movies and then get into factoids. But when you really have a person of history like Abe Lincoln as your forefront and center person, you're gonna have to acknowledge like the shitty things that he did too. Because let's be honest, if you don't know a lot of this shit, which it's sad if people don't know it, if you just look at it, you're like, oh fuck yeah. But I look at it, I'm like, fuck yeah, but oof. So one of the things in the book that I did want to bring up, because you're talking about like how they're making all these people into vampires in the book, because they left a lot of shit out of the theatrical ending for the film. In the book, he does get assassinated by Booth, which is also a vampire. But
Booth, I wanted to know, is he a vampire?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
that.
So
should have showed that.
Yeah, so he is a vampire and he assassinates Lincoln, which here's the thing. He actually winds up more or less being excommunicated in a way by like the rest of vampires in a sense, which is really strange because he winds up living out in solitude until he's arrested by the Union. And then in the book,
this wasn't a sanctioned hit on Lincoln for the vampires. They didn't.
Not that I recall. I just remember that he actually gets arrested, like full blown. Like they just arrested him. They didn't even kill him. And years later, Sturgis is at the "I Have a Dream" speech that Martin Luther King is giving.
Oh.
And Abraham Lincoln appears as well, because Sturgis finally turned him into a vampire, and the book ends with him saying the book ends with him saying some men are just too interesting to die. So Lincoln lives.
I love that ending.
Yeah, he lives in the book. So
this is hysterical.
That should have been in the movie.
No, I think I would have liked that. I think I would. That would have been. I don't know. I either would have liked it, or I would have been like, "What in the holy hell is happening right now?"
Also, like, I'm also annoyed. I'm also annoyed that I've never met somebody who's like, "You're too interesting to die. I'm going to turn you into a vampire." Like, why can't that happen in my fucking life? Like, why hasn't that happened? I want to live forever, just like this. Like, let's go, vampires. Let's go. Where are you?
I mean,
I could just picture the fucking sequel tagline if they ever did it. 7 years later. It's like, all right, cool. Fuck.
Yes. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Wow.
That would be funny. That's funny.
That's a great ending. I love that. Now that should have happened.
Yeah, I like that better than him just walking away, because I was wondering at the end, like, oh, he's just going to get shot by Booth. Like he should be a vampire or something.
Yeah.
Not Lincoln, but that a vampire should, if he's going to get killed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the cool thing about the book is actually formatted like you're reading his journal. Like, you know how he's kept a journal through the whole movie?
Yeah.
And he hands it off to Burton. He's like, here, keep this, hang on to it for me.
Yeah.
That's essentially supposed to be the book right there, is literally all of his journal entries. So in the book, you're hearing all of this from his personal recollection and his personal accounting of it. So
yeah, and the movie starts that way.
Yep.
We have that narration happening.
Yeah, and
I kind of like that.
Same, and then the font on the title card of his signature on the title is actually some of the stuff in the book as well. So they translated some of it really well. I'm like y'all. I was pissed off that the ending got left out of the movie. I understand why they did it, but.
Well, it was a long movie.
It didn't need to be as long as it was, to be honest with you. But I appreciate what Timur Bekmambetov. It's a fucking mouthful. He's Russian Kazakh, so he's got this really long fucking crazy name. But his movies are all kind of like this. I think Wanted was probably the most American style film that he did, but his influence is definitely in it. Night Watch and Day Watch are both based on books as well. If you're looking to check his other stuff out, and it's actually a whole tetralogy of books. But the first two movies, they're the only two movies, are based on the first and 1/4 of the second book. The first book and 1/4 of the second book. So I think Timur has actually adapted more novels. I think he's done a couple of other films that are adapted from other works. He did the remake of Ben-Hur. I think it was 2016 that it came out. And he's working on some other stuff, but he's been more low key. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter was definitely his last higher profile movie. And I'm not saying it killed his career here in the States, but it probably killed his career here in the States, because there's been nothing else from him after that. Not even a sequel to Wanted. So got me.
But the CGI, like you mentioned, it came out a decade ago, and I feel like CGI a decade ago didn't look like this, did it? I mean, is it CGI really gotten that much better in the last 10 years? Because this was especially I would reference the scene on top of the train with the smoke. That smoke seemed like a cover to try to cover up all of these digital things that were happening, and it was just it just didn't look right.
Yeah.
Oh, that train scene. The thing on that train that made me laugh, I know I'm going back to the movie, but you have it was classic villain movie, because he starts monologuing on the side of the train, and that wastes the time that allows him to be defeated. So I was like, oh, okay. There was a lot of cheesy
CGI.
Yeah. And it felt matrixy with the way they were fighting.
Yeah,
I like
that. But it seems dated now, though.
It is.
Watching it now.
Yeah, it definitely is. But if you look at it, it came out in 2012. You know what else came out in 2012? The Avengers. So you could say that CG was dated, but also the work that went into it shows. The movie had between a $66 and $100 million budget, if I remember right.
Jeez.
I want to know where the fuck that money went to. I want to know where the fuck that money
seriously.
went. It only made 116 at the box office, so it didn't even really break even. Because if you want to break even, like in Hollywood standards, to break even, you need to make double the budget before you actually start pulling profit in. Because typically you take the budget of a film, say like just spitballing, it's $100 million. You're going to spend twice that on the marketing, so $200 million. This movie would have had to make $400 million just to break even.
Jesus.
It was never going to make that much money. Like,
yeah, that's a lot. I mean, what is going on in this film industry? That's a lot of damn money.
And for 2012, it was definitely a lot of money. I mean, if you think about the fact that I want to say the last Avengers film, I want to say that was like almost $300 to $500 million on a budget. It had to have been. But I mean,
no wonder they keep making all these movies.
Yeah, and it made like 2.6 or 2.7 billion dollars at the box office. Like when you think about the fact that we are so accustomed to the superhero genre being what is pulling money in at the cinema right now, when you see movies like this that they like, I'll admit, like the filmmakers, they tried. Everybody that makes a film tries, and I think that's at least on our podcast. We might kind of shit on some of these movies, but it's all in good fun. I don't ever, say like when I'm like, oh, fuck this movie. It's not like, oh, fuck this movie and the people that it wrote in on, but it's more or less like, oh my God, what is this fucking movie? But you look at movies like this that really did try, and they put effort into it, and then it just kind of falls short. It does suck for the people involved. And then you look at movies like The Batman or the new Spider-Man that just came out, and they just fucking rake money in like it's nothing. It's not hard to see why audiences and film studios drop money on those, because they make the money. And it's harder for indie, because this was kind of like a low-key film for 20th Century Fox, believe it or not. It didn't really have a chance. It didn't have a lot of people behind it. And I think it was executed less than stellar. Like, I think if it would have, like we've all been saying, if it would have been a little more comedic in tone, a little more self-aware, it probably would have done better. Like, really. Yeah,
it took itself really too seriously. That's I remember being in the theater and seeing a trailer for this movie and being like, what the fuck? Like, people are laughing, and I'm like, I don't know if it's a comedy though. Like, I don't think it's supposed to be funny, but you're right, they took themselves too seriously, because it wasn't a bad movie. It was just like, you're just confused. And the audience doesn't want to be confused. They want you to tell them a story. Take me along on this journey. If I'm on this journey and I thought I'm going to like Pizza Hut, and now I'm stuck at fucking, behind a dumpster somewhere. I'm like, what am I doing over here? I thought I was going this way. Why am I going this? Like, it was so confusing. And I really think it has a lot to do with the fact that we all have this idea of Abraham Lincoln, right? Like, we have this really picture idea of what we learned in school about Abraham Lincoln. Like, Tina's mentioned some things that were actual facts that you'll never hear in school, but like, we have an idea of him. Right. And they took that idea and they kind of warped it. And it was hard to, I think that's the thing, like, get your head around this other idea of who Abraham Lincoln was, even though you had to suspend all of that. It's kind of hard to do because he's so famous. I
think you're right, Hillary. Like, if they would have just made it campy from the beginning, it would have been a lot more fun, because then you could kind of go along with it. Yeah. But when it's trying to be serious, like, I think that's, you're right. I think that's
what if the opening scene was this? He's in the Oval Office. It's old Abe. And all of a sudden there's like, he's at his desk and he's like, being serious, and a fucking vampire comes in and he pulls his axe out, or he's like struggling with the vampire, and he turns to the camera and he's like, let me tell you how this started. Like, it just goes back. Like, wouldn't that have been funnier to be like, holy shit, there's a vampire and Abraham Lincoln in the Oval Office, and it's like, what the fuck's happening? Like, everybody be like, let's go back to how, like, he's just talking like not a Schitt's Creek. What is it? Like The Office, or like, what I mean, where they're talking to the camera.
They break the fourth wall.
Yeah, like, that would have been funny. Like, make it funny. But I don't know if the book was funny. It seemed like the book was serious.
The book. Yeah, the book was borderline serious. I mean, but still, if you're going to go as far as they did with, adapting it and changing some things, by all means, please make it much more like comedically palatable. I 100% agree. I think that's what, that's another problem that I kind of had with Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies, like the ripoff of this fucking movie. Because that was legitimately a B movie, like, straight up. And so when we watched that, and then we watched that FDR movie, I knew 5 minutes into the other one, I was like, well, this is gonna fucking win. It was just like tonality, like complete 180. I was like, this is gonna fucking win. Because we were gonna put this on our Cult Cinema Showdown, but I was sitting there going, just remembering everything about it, going, there's no fucking way I can put this against anything. Like it takes itself too seriously, and also it deserved to have its own like standalone piece, because it really is it's not a complex movie, but if you don't know the shit that people are not being taught in school, it's too simple. Like if you know like everything that really is going in, then you're really questioning it, being like, oh, okay, that's not right. That's not right. That really ain't fucking right. That was kind of cool, but that's not right.
But, on your podcast, you talk about these B movies, a lot of movies that I've never heard of before, ever. I don't know how you find them. I'd love to know how you find all these movies. Maybe you've just been a fan from like way back in the day. But like on the level of reviewing movies, where does this fall? Like, is this better than all these other movies that you've talked about? Like at the level, because you do some pretty like low budget films. Is this at the top of that kind of level?
Honestly, okay, so I'll answer that first question. My family owned a video store when I was younger. We own an entire video store. I have been a cinephile for as long as I can possibly remember.
Nice.
I never looked at movies at surface value entertainment. I can remember even at a young age when I saw the first Ninja Turtles movie that came out in 1990. That was my first movie in theaters. And I just remember being fascinated by the Jim Henson's Creature Shop effects that went into it.
I mean, that was like, I remember that movie.
And to me, that movie was the perfect... I still say, like, a lot of people are like, well, what's your favorite movie? And I don't have necessarily a favorite because I love movies so much. But if I had to pick one that I can just pull off the shelf at any point in time and watch it, that's one of them, because there's comedy, there's action, there are like legitimate, I say sentimental to me just as a childhood because I grew up on TMNT, but there were actual literal things happening in that movie that happened to people in real life. Not a lot of people look at properties like Ninja Turtles or X-Men and think, okay, they're kind of tackling racism here. They're kind of tackling shoving aside like minorities and shit like that, because those characters were not accepted as who they are. So they have to fucking hide and shit all the time. So I look at stuff like that. Even at a young age, I was always just like, why can't they just be friends with everybody? I look at movies like that 100% completely. But to answer your other question, as far as like, how am I finding all this shit? I watch a lot of shit. Like there's a company called Vinegar Syndrome that specializes completely in restoring movies into 4K from their original negatives, which is quite honestly a lost art form in itself, like using actual film to do shit. Everything's digital now.
Yeah, everything's digital.
Yeah. So I go buy a lot of these movies, and they're fantastic films. A lot of these will never see the light of day otherwise. As far as Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter goes on, like the scale of, is it like bottom tier, mid, or high tier? I would put it kind of in the center, only because it had potential, didn't quite live up to that potential, but it wasn't shitty enough that I'm going to throw it in the $2 bin at Walmart. Like it definitely deserves like its cult, because it has a cult following. It's definitely got its cult film status, but it wasn't big enough to be talked about by a larger audience nowadays. Because, the fact that it came out 10 years ago, I even said, I was like, this is a fucking 10-year-old movie already? Like, what the fuck?
10 years flies by now. I mean, I know. Feels like 5 minutes ago at this point.
I know.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I enjoy just older cinema, underground cinema. And the best part about it is when you find even independent cinema, we are giant advocates for independent cinema. I would rather give my money to a movie that came from literally nothing. Not to say that I'm not going to watch major Hollywood productions. I just saw Sonic the Hedgehog 2 last weekend, for fuck's sake. But which was fantastic, by the way.
My kids are dying to see it. I'm like, please don't make me go to the theater.
No, it's great. It's fucking worth it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
The first one was good too. But yeah, like I would rather give my money to a completely independent crew for a film that came from nothing. Like we did a movie, we did a cult cinema showdown of Spaghetti Man versus Inhumanwich. And you wouldn't think, like, okay, these are gonna suck. Spaghetti Man was legitimately fucking hilarious and very well made and acted. Inhumanwich reminded me of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, but with a sloppy Joe. And it was and it was great. And they had a lot of they had a lot of like NASA factoids and stupid shit in there, and it was so funny. Yeah, so I very much love cinema in general. It's hard for me to look at a movie and say fuck this movie for real.
Yeah.
I need to ask you, just because I love like old movies and I love like old B-movie stuff, and I went through a phase where I watched like The Blob, The Thing, you know.
Yes.
So out of that sort of genre back in the day, like what The Blob has always been it's so stupid, like when you watch it, but I love it. Do you have a favorite in that genre, that sort of kind of creepy category, early 1960s, late 50s sort of, I don't want to say horror, but kind of B horror film? Absolutely.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh my God, so good.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a fantastic film. Donald Sutherland was so good in that. Jeff Goldblum was in it, for fuck's sake. Like, It's one of his earlier roles. And I love the original.
What's your favorite, Hillary?
I love him.
Oh, yeah.
She loves him.
Oh, Jeff Goldblum? Who doesn't love Jeff Goldblum?
I have a bit of a thing for, I don't know why, but I realized that maybe it's a kink, I don't know, for older, bald Jewish men. It's like, it's my thing. I don't know what's happening to me. But by the way, I'm not questioning it. I'm just going with it. Let's just go with it. See what happens.
Oh my God.
See what happens.
Yeah, I really appreciate y'all coming and hanging out with me to do this. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad we finally got to. Yeah, it has been. I'm glad we finally got to do it. I'm sorry our schedules like suck. I mean, on our end, you know, I'm sorry we were having so many freaking issues, but I mean, I want to do this again. Like, absolutely want to do this again.
Yes,
like,
that would be amazing.
Yeah, like we can brainstorm, you know, another idea or another movie even. I don't care what it is. I'm just all about hanging out with y'all and just bullshitting. So.
Oh, you're so sweet. And I want to thank you because we are on the OddPods networks together, that media network, and you are one of our OddPods fam, and we really appreciate letting us come on this show. It means a lot to us.
Hell yeah. But like I said, I've been wanting to do it for a while. Oh, you're very, very welcome. I've been wanting to do this for like a long fucking time, and so I want to get a lot of the other shows on too, because like I just haven't had the time to do it, and now, like right now I'm having the time to be able to do it. So I'd love to have literally every show on. So yeah. So before we leave here on Super Media Bros, if y'all want to plug y'all stuff one last time, where can people find y'all? All that jazz, social media, let them have it. Let them have it.
You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on most podcast platforms, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, and then Muck Podcast at Muck Podcast on Twitter.
And also our website, themuckpodcast.com.
Yes, go to our website, sign up, subscribe.
We will put links in the show notes below, so scroll up and click that shit. Like right now, stop what you're doing and scroll up and click it and go. And just
thank you.
Just tell me personally to go fuck myself and go listen to these ladies be fucking awesome. I expect that. I expect nothing less from the people that listen to our show to come on our comments and be like, yeah, great show, but fuck you guys. Because it's we don't care.
I love it. I'm here for that.
So, all right. Y'all know where to find us. SuperMediaBrosPodcast.com. Go to OddPodsMedia.com to listen to all the other shows on the OddPods Media Network. Buy some fucking merchandise. We've only sold a damn tank top and koozie this year. And I know you sons of bitches are hot. It's summertime. Buy the shit out of it. I know it's the color black and it will absorb all the heat, but we left the sleeves off on purpose. We left them off on purpose. Just do it. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's all in the show notes below. Just click away, and then still tell me to go fuck myself in the comments below. Come look at our stupid pictures. You know all that jazz. Ladies, Tina, Hillary, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I've had a blast, and I hope you guys did too. Fucking A.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you
so much.
You're very welcome. This has been Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, episode 221. Until next week, I'm Richie. This has been Tina and Hillary from the Muck Podcast. Shades on. We're off.